Hello YouTube Pipers, Double O Pipe, aka Rick here. I loaded up my pipe. It's a Mountain Batten. I don't know if y'all are familiar with this one when I showed it a while back. And I loaded it up with Cult Blood Red Moon because I felt like I wanted something extra tasty today. Well, I'm going to go a little off the beaten path here. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm also, let's put it this way. I'm a big fan of the booktubers. I have quite a few of them that I go to on a daily basis that I started out with, and there are quite a few that have been added since. Not only to my list, but to the list on YouTube itself. I think the first one I ever watched was Criminale. And he's the fella who gave a name to August, this being the 1st of August. It's a celebration that is called GarbAugust. I've mentioned it before, way back when. It's a month where you read trashy books just for the fun of reading. No classics, no deep hidden meanings in literature, just classy, trashy books, such as this. The Hollywood Bedside Reader, an Avon book from way back when. It doesn't even have a price on it. I've collected books for years. I walked you through the house one time showing you all the books I have around, and I don't think you saw half of them really because there are a lot just piled up on the walls. But anyway, let's see, Criminale was one of the first. Michael Vaughan was one of the first, and Roy Who Reads Anything was one of the first that I got into. And like I say, just as with the pipe community, more and more people are joining the communities to add to the number that are posting. Well, this post that I'm making is not so much about pipes and smoking pipes as it is just for the love of books I have. And I've got my first book that I'm going to read for GarbAugust. Let me show it to you. Sin on Wheels. I've been wanting to read this for ages, and now I have the perfect reason to do it. GarbAugust. So that's going to be the first thing I'm going to put on my list. And there are some rules, but you don't have to follow them. Not exactly rules, but just some suggestions for each week of GarbAugust. The first week is category romance. That would be like Harlequin and that type. Or men's adventures. Kind of divides that up between the sexes. And then the second week, it's Paperbacks from Hell or Vintage Smut. That would be what we called dirty books back in the 50s, which are mighty tame compared to the books of today, even the ones that they call literature today. And the third week is novelizations. That would be a novelization of a movie or a television show that you're familiar with and you'd like to continue to know more about the characters, so you pick up a book that somebody has written, like Star Trek. There must be thousands of Star Trek books out there that don't have anything to do with the old Star Trek, but still those characters live on in these books. Or books by famous people. I tried to find one I had. I had a book written by Tony Curtis. I got rid of it. I know I did, because it was just awful. I couldn't believe people bought it. I mean, I bought it because I was curious. That's probably why anybody else did. And the fourth week is Anything Goes. Means you can pick up anything you want to read. And I have some examples here from the old days and from the new days. A comic novel, Barefoot Boy with Cheek by Max Schulman. He's the creator of Dobie Gillis, if y'all are familiar. That was a while back. They had a TV show of Dobie Gillis. Then there's the Ace Doubles. This is just a typical example. This one is two westerns written by the same author. Then there's the Men's Adventure. This one being Kashka, written by the fella who wrote the song Green Beret, and that was Barry Sadler. Then you can get books that have copies of stories from Manhunt, which was a man's adventure magazine back in the 50s and 60s. And surprisingly, there are 4 of these out now. I have the other 2 in front of this third one. But I've gone through the first 2 and they read rapidly because they're just fun adventures. Now the man behind these GarbAugust trashy books, Mickey Spillane. Everybody knows Mickey Spillane. My Gun is Quick, I, the Jury. This is just the first of a 3-novel compendium. But you can pick those up just about anywhere, cheap. There was a person, I don't know who the guy, I can't remember his name now, but he started publishing books under the title of Hard Case Crimes, and they were not revisions, but copies of trashy books from the 50s and 60s. I'm not sure if any of the 40s were in there, but this is typical. And the covers are painted by the illustrators who used to paint the illustrations for those old books. That's one. Here's another. All good stories if you're just reading for the fun of it. I can't remember, that's a pseudonym for somebody, but I can't remember who it is. Then there's the Carter Brown series. All great covers from those old days. Carter Brown wrote hundreds of books. I think he was an author in Australia, but he made a mint. because they're all short. They're all about 130 pages. Quick reads, adventures, mysteries, what have you. This one I remember. I bought the entire series of these recently. Drake, the man with nobody's face, he started out just as criminal, got into an adventure, had his face redone so he didn't look like the person he was, and somehow the government got a hold of him and put him into spies, or spying novels, whatever you want to call it. Everybody's familiar with Lawrence Block, a mystery writer. This has recently come out, The Naked and the Deadly by Lawrence Block. It's all the books, or all the stories that he wrote for those men's adventure magazines and such. Now, I was one who enjoyed short stories and science fiction, and particularly this guy, Charles Beaumont. I used to go and buy compendiums of short stories if they contained just one of his stories, because you couldn't find a book like this. But Charles Beaumont was one of my favorites. He was a man who wrote many of the scripts for Twilight Zone. And I love these covers. Now this has recently come out, Bold Adventure or Bold Venture. But these covers, you can't beat them. You just can't beat them. This is another trashy novel that I was going to read eventually. Ladies of the Valley. It's supposed to be a bit on the smutty side, and then you can't go wrong if you want something that's on the smutty side of getting Jackie Collins. I get these magazines that are very good. They contain a lot of information about the people who wrote these stories, and the stories are contained in this. Very good magazine. And you can also get into, like I say, Star Trek has thousands of books which I know have to be thought of as trashy. But this is one of the newest ones I got. I just started that the other day. That's pretty much all that I have to show you. Just to give you an idea of what GarbAugust is all about. I don't know if any of you guys read a bunch, but it's a fun month. Like I say, it's just reading for fun. It's to give people a chance who don't normally read to have a good reason to read something that's just fun to read. I mean, it's something you read and just forget. But while you're reading it, it's a good time. Keeps your mind occupied. And I just wanted to do this to help them with GarbAugust, because like I say, I'm a big fan of booktubers as well. I'm sure they don't need any help, because this has gotten a big promotion from dozens of people in the booktubing community. Criminale favored me by introducing his first video of the month with my ugly mug welcoming people to GarbAugust, which I appreciated very much. And I wanted to pass it on to everybody that's out there. I know you probably turned this off a long time ago because I'm not doing my usual, but I wanted to kind of, in my own way, be a part of that community inspire people to pick up some trash and just read it. Just have some fun with a book. I mean, there's a lot of junk out there that you can pick up really cheap. And I think if you have a Kindle, that a lot of the books that are considered trash are very inexpensive in the ebook format. So, to all the booktubers out there, I appreciate you guys too, and I just wanted to, like I say, be a momentary part of GarbAugust and to introduce a few different people to the intention behind it and the fun of just picking up a book and reading it. If you want to start with anything, start with Mike Hammer. Mike Hammer, I remember reading him in the 50s, and that was, whoa, that was some hot stuff. Mike Hammer, yeah. Very well known. Considered trash by so many people, but it's just, his adventures are just enjoyable. Escapism is what it is. I remember I went to the College of Charleston, which was sort of an elite college here in town. Very small, very self-indulgent, I guess you might say back then. It's totally different now. I mean, it's taken up half the city, I think, now. But it was, when I was there, it was only about 250 students total for all 4 years. And they had a literary tradition of asking writers, or authors, excuse me, there's a difference, authors to come and speak to the student body. They asked Mickey Spillane to come talk to the student body. I think this must have been late 50s, early 60s. I'm not sure exactly the date. I was there from 64 to 68. But whenever he stood up to give his speech, they introduced him as the author Mickey Spillane. And he said, "There's a difference. I'm not an author. I'm a writer. I write for money." They were all shocked in the background. He said, "Anybody that doesn't write for money is a fool." And then he went on with his speech. I would love to have been there to see the looks on their faces. But anyway, start with Mickey Spillane. You'll love him. You really will. There are so many good stories. Get a copy of one of these compendiums of just short stories from these old magazines. The Best of Manhunt, 1, 2, and 3. A variety of writers from back in those days, and the stories just grab you and keep you going until you finish, and you can't realize how quickly you've read that thing. Good stories, enjoyable fun. Like I said, a little off the beam for the pipe community. And I hope, well, we'll see. We'll see what y'all have to say. You can always tune me out. That's the thing about these things. You can always turn them off and go somewhere else. There's plenty of people out there talking. All right, folks. YouTube pipers and YouTube book folk, take care of yourselves. I hope you had a decent day. Hope your weekend was good. Take care of yourselves. God bless you until the next time.